At my own 18th birthday dinner, my stepfather leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said, "You really think you belong in this family? Avery, you're not even mine." And Mason Reed wasn't the only man who tried to claim you. The room fell into a silence so sharp it felt like glass under my skin. My mother's fork slipped from her hand. Lucas stood frozen in the doorway. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't understand why my life was cracking open in front of the red velvet cake I'd wished on minutes earlier. I didn't know it then, but this moment would destroy everything they thought they controlled. My name is Quinn Avery Hart. I'm 18, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in a house where silence weighed more than words. The Hart home looked perfect from the outside white shutters, trimmed hedges, a porch light that never flickered. But inside, everything felt colder, like the air didn't know how to warm itself around me. One of my earliest memories is sitting at the kitchen table, legs too short to reach the floor, staring at the math test I'd worked on for days. A bright red, a curved across the top. I was proud until Daniel snatched it from my hands. He glanced at it the way people glance at grocery receipts. Unimpressed and annoyed. "Heart blood deserves better," he muttered, crumpling it slightly before tossing it onto the counter. My mother didn't say a word. Lucas laughed under his breath. I swallowed it, but it carved deeper than I realized. Every winter, birthday packages would go missing. My mother always acted confused, tilting her head, saying things like, "Maybe the delivery guy mixed up the address again." I didn't question it back then. Kids don't question the adults they need to survive. Still, something about those lost gifts left a bruise I carried quietly. There was a snowstorm the Christmas I turned 9. Lucas ripped open a new gaming console while I held a thin box of socks in my lap. Daniel clapped Lucas on the back, pride all over his face. When he looked at me, it evaporated. My mother tried to smile in my direction, but the corners of her mouth trembled, like she knew something I didn't. I didn't know it then, but these tiny fractures were building toward the night my entire world would shatter. By middle school, I'd learned how to read the house the way some kids read weather patterns. The clatter of Daniel's keys at the front door meant I should shrink. The low hum of the TV in the living room meant he was in one of his quiet moods, the dangerous kind. And my mother's soft footsteps meant she was trying to keep the peace before anything cracked. When I was 12, she found me teaching myself piano on a dusty keyboard Lucas had outgrown. Music made sense to me in a way people didn't. But when Daniel saw me playing, he walked over, pressed one finger on the off switch, and said, "Stop pretending talent runs in your blood." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. My mother stood behind him, eyes shining with something between guilt and fear. She never taught me a single note after that. I didn't know it at the time, but this would matter later. In high school, the distance between me and my family only grew. At Lucas's football games, Daniel roared from the bleachers, face red with pride. At my debate finals, he didn't show up. Not once. When I won first place junior year, I texted a photo of my ribbon to our family group chat. Lucas sent a thumbs up. My mother typed, "Proud of you, honey," and immediately deleted it. Daniel's bubble appeared, typing, then disappearing, before the chat went silent. I never asked what happened. Some truths were too heavy to touch. Ms. Harper, the school counselor, once stopped me after class. "You always flinch when someone raises their voice," she said gently. "Are you safe at home?" I told her I was fine, but her eyes lingered on me the way someone watches a crack forming in a wall. Back then, I didn't realize every missing gift, every silenced achievement, every swallowed question was pointing toward a secret big enough to tear the Hart family apart. The first real crack appeared 2 months before my birthday. On a night so still, the house felt like it was holding its breath. I was lying in bed, scrolling aimlessly, when a faint red blink pulsed from the corner of my ceiling. At first I thought it was a reflection from outside, But when I stood on my chair and reached up, my fingertips brushed cold metal. A tiny black camera, barely the size of a thumb, pointed directly at my bed. My heart slammed against my ribs. I stormed to the hallway. But Daniel's door was shut, the glow beneath it steady and unblinking, as if daring me to knock. I didn't. I just stood there, shaking, realizing he'd been watching me long before I noticed. The silence that night pressed on my lungs until it hurt. A week later, Mrs. Collins waved me over while I was unloading groceries. Her curls were wild from the wind, but her eyes were sharp. "Sweetheart, did you ever get those birthday packages your father sent?" I froze. "My father," she nodded. "Tall man, dark jacket. Used to come by when you were little. Daniel told him you weren't allowed to receive anything." She said it casually, like commenting on the weather. But my chest tightened as if something heavy had dropped straight through me. I muttered a shaky thank you and hurried inside, the grocery bags digging into my palms. Another wound added to the pile. Lucas came home unexpectedly one Friday night. Shoulders tense, jaw set. We hadn't spoken much in months, but as he passed me in the hall, he whispered, "He tried to send you away once. Military school. Said he'd fix your attitude there." I stared at him, stunned. "Why didn't you tell me?" He rubbed his neck, eyes darting toward Daniel's office door. "Because he said if I did, Mom would lose everything." His voice cracked on the last word. It carved a new ache in me, deep and raw. And through all of this, my mother drifted around the house like a ghost of her former self. One night she murmured, "You don't understand, Avery. I thought Daniel would save us." Save who? From what? She didn't answer. The question festered. Every scene made the walls feel closer. Every revelation tightened something inside me. And still, the worst was yet to come. 2 days before my birthday, the Hart house felt colder than usual. The kind of cold that settles into your bones, not your skin. Daniel was in one of his silent storms, pacing the living room with a glass of scotch he never actually drank. Every few minutes, he glanced toward me, like he was measuring something, my posture, my fear, my usefulness. I kept my eyes on the floor. He liked it that way. That night, while searching for an old notebook, I opened the door to the storage room. The bulb flickered overhead, casting a thin, sickly glow across boxes stacked neatly, too neatly. Daniel wasn't a neat man. That alone felt wrong. Something in me stirred. A quiet push. I moved a stack of winter coats and saw it a small wooden lockbox, polished but scratched at the edges, as if someone had handled it in anger. The lock was cheap. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside were letters tied with a fading blue ribbon. The top one had my name written in a handwriting I didn't recognize, steady, intentional. Beneath them lay a folded sheet stamped with a hospital's logo and a photo I'd never seen my mother in a hospital gown, holding a newborn me, beside a man who wasn't Daniel or Mason. My breath snagged in my throat. My fingers shook as I lifted the photo, the corner brushing my cheek like a cold whisper. Before I could process any of it, footsteps echoed down the hall. I shoved everything back into the box and closed the lid just as Daniel appeared in the doorway. His eyes scanned the room. Looking for something, he asked, voice low, almost amused. I forced a smile. "Just old school stuff." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the sharp bite of his cologne. "Curiosity is dangerous, Avery, especially in this house." His hand tapped the doorframe twice before he walked away. My knees weakened after he left, because in that moment, I knew he knew. He always knew. That night I lay awake. The image of the mystery man burned into my mind, and for the first time, fear and clarity twisted together inside me. Whatever secret my mother and Daniel were hiding, it wasn't just messy. It was monstrous. The night of my 18th birthday felt wrong from the moment I walked downstairs. The house was too quiet, the air too still, the lights too bright. My mother had set the table like she was auditioning for a holiday commercial, but her hands trembled as she lit the candles on the cake. Lucas hovered near the doorway, restless, and Daniel sat in his usual chair. The king of a kingdom held together by silence and fear. When the last candle flickered to life, my mother whispered, "Make a wish. Avery." Her voice cracked like thin ice. I leaned forward, breath catching, then Daniel stood. "Actually," he said, lifting his glass, "I have something better than a wish. A truth." The room tightened. "You should hear who you really are, who you're not." My mother's hand shot out. "Daniel, please." He cut her off with a cold laugh. "She's not a child anymore. She deserves to know why she's never fit in here." His eyes locked on mine. "You're not my daughter. Never were. Mason Reed isn't the only man who tried to claim you." The words hit like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. My mother gasped. Lucas whispered, "Dad, stop." But Daniel was just getting started. "You think Mason is your big mystery, sweetheart? You have no idea how many lies your mother spun before she landed me." He took a slow sip. "Ask her about the hospital photo. Ask her who that man is." My mother burst into tears. "Daniel." "No," I stepped back. The room spinning. My breath sharp and uneven. "What photo?" My voice didn't sound like mine. His smile was razor thin. "Go ahead. Tell her how many fathers she almost had." Something inside me cracked open. I walked to the storage room, heart pounding in my ears. I grabbed the wooden box, marched back, and set it on the dining table. My hands were steady, shockingly steady. "Explain this," I said. The room went dead silent. My mother reached for the box, but Daniel blocked her with one arm. "Enjoying the spectacle. Go on. Elena, tell her why you buried this." Lucas swallowed hard. "Mom, please." She collapsed into a chair. Sobbing, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Daniel saved you," he snapped. "Say it." But for the first time, she didn't obey. She looked at me with a broken kind of terror. "Avery, your biological father is Mason. But before Mason came back into my life, there was another man. A short relationship. Complicated. Messy. I didn't know who was who. I panicked. And Daniel," he said, "the only way he'd stay was if I shut everything down." Daniel stepped forward, fury darkening his face. "Ungrateful. All of you. I built this family." "No," I said quietly. "You built a prison." Neighbors had begun gathering outside, drawn by the shouting. The tension thick as smoke. "Mrs.?" Collins stood on the porch. Phone raised slightly. Lucas moved to my side. Trembling but resolute, Daniel's voice rose. "You think anyone will believe you? I've kept this family together for 18 years. And now," I said, lifting the hospital photo, "I'm tearing it apart." His face twisted. An animal cornered. "Avery, don't you walk away." But I already had. Not with my feet. With my eyes, with the decision forming like ice in my chest. For the first time in my life, Daniel Hart had lost control, and he knew it. The moment I stepped outside, the winter air hit me like a slap sharp. Honest, nothing like the suffocating warmth inside the Hart house. Mason was already pulling into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the stunned faces of our neighbors. When he got out of the car, he didn't touch me. He just looked at me the way no one in that house ever had, like I mattered. "You ready?" he asked quietly. I nodded, my breath unsteady. Behind me, the front door slammed open. Daniel stormed onto the porch, shouting my name, but the words scattered in the cold like ashes. "Mrs." Collins lifted her phone just a little higher. Lucas stepped in front of Daniel, blocking his path not boldly, but enough. It was the first time he'd ever chosen me over fear. My mother appeared behind them, eyes swollen, hands trembling at her sides. She didn't call out. Maybe she finally understood she'd lost the one person who still wanted the truth. I turned back to the house one last time. The lights in the windows flickered like they were gasping. My childhood never lived in that place. It had only rotted there. "I'm done," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. When I got into Mason's SUV, something hard and bright settled in my chest. Not anger, not grief. Something sharper, because in the wooden box still pressed under my arm, I held letters, DNA papers, and a photo of a man no one wanted to talk about. They thought exposing the truth would destroy me. They didn't realize they'd given me the one weapon they could never take back.